Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
Thank you for having accepted our invitation. So today we are meeting in order to speak about your inner experience with your psychic being or your inner being. So would you like to tell us if and how you are in contact with it?
Yeah, I think there's a question of access and a question of integration. I I feel my inner being. I feel my understanding of the word psychic being has to do with this evolutionary being that lives through multiple lifetimes and grows and develops. And I have had experiences of this like being that's bigger than one life, this being that's bigger than my personality. And even more deeply than that, this silence that underlies that, the light, the radiance that underlies any kind of sense of individual self that I have. And throughout my life, there's different times where that kind of flares up, or I'm in a state of deep meditation, or I'm in a sacred space, or I'm with a, with a teacher or something, and I really drop into that. And then there's the question of integration, which is how much does that flow into every moment of my life and my relationships and my decisions and all that. And that's an evolving process. And I think in some ways, the experiences of contact with my deeper being, for a while, I mean, it's amazing, it's beautiful, it's joyful, it's peaceful, and I think I feel less now like it's a big deal because really the work, or the, not work in the sense of labor, but the process is, my attention is more on integration. And when I'm with my wife and we're in an argument and we disagree about something, where's my inner being then? And if I feel afraid that I'm going to lose something important to me, where's my inner being then? And how can I stabilize that relationship to myself so that it flows through even when I am kind of gripping around something?
Mm-hmm. And would you like to share a bit more about how it is manifesting when it is there?
For the past 25 years, I've had a relationship specifically with the mother as a, a particular being with a particular face and voice. I first came to Oroville in 2000. So starting then and pretty consistently, when I go inside, there's this aspect of myself that reaches to her and surrenders to her. And there's a really deep offering of everything. And there's times when I've made big decisions in my life, like what job I have or what house I'm going to live in, or, based on asking her, and then feeling often an answer that is completely incongruous with my life, that feels confusing and I don't understand, but I go with it. And amazing things have happened. My whole life has been shaped by this dynamic of asking, receiving an answer, and then kind of walking out into what feels like thin air until I find that I'm somehow standing on a ground that I never would have found otherwise. There's still places in me that unconsciously are not that. So that's there all the time. I can generally, if I look for it, find it. If I have some space, I can get quiet, I can go inside, and I can feel this surrender, this desire, this deep desire to give everything to the divine and to be completely in alignment with the divine. And I know that I'm afraid of intimacy, and that I'm afraid of being seen. My wife and I have been married for 18 years. And so she knows me she sees everything. There's nothing that I can hide. And that level of visibility is hard. And so I have a tendency to harden myself in relationship to her. And so if she challenges me or if she says something a little bit off, then I kind of tense, you know? So the question of how to stay or find that connection to myself that is surrendered to the divine in that moment. I mean, I say it as a question. It's not so much a question as like something that I'm trying to do more. When I feel the resistance to go into, okay, what is it? What's holding? Why am I holding? What am I afraid of? Because the psychic being is there. My inner being is there. It's not like it went away. It's not like it got disconnected from me somehow. It's there, and I know it's there, but there's something that constricts and prohibits the fluidity of its expression. So these are the things that are present for me now in my life. You know, when there was a question recently of, you know, coming to Oroville, when should I come? I live in America. I usually come every year. I didn't come in the fall because I didn't feel guided to come. And then I was thinking, when am I going to come? In the winter, am I going to come? I didn't feel anything. And so I pray and I wait and there's nothing. And I'm thinking, maybe I'm not even coming to Oroville. And then suddenly it's like, these are the dates, go. And so I live like that, you know. It's somewhat easy and fluid for me on the kind of decision-making level where I can just, you know, okay, this is it's not a high stakes, it's not a decision that scares me so much. Even, you know, if I feel concerned that somebody might not like me, or if I feel concerned that the work that I'm doing is going to run into a roadblock, and it's not going to be possible anymore, what is going to happen? You know, a lot of my work is supporting projects in Oroville to raise funds, and so with all the logistical pieces of that, it's like if I'm afraid that something's going to happen, then I feel myself, it's easy to drift away from that depth and into some kind of strategic mindset. I need to figure this out, or stress, tension. What am I going to do? And
did you have to learn any techniques or practices in order to contact your inner being and stay in contact with it?
It's like a prayer / meditation. I mean, it's not like a technique, and it's nothing anybody taught me really. I do have a teacher in the US who's alive, you know, an embodied teacher, and her being teaches me. She lives in a state of surrender. So I look at her, I sit next to her, and I'm like, okay, so it's like that. And there's a kind of transmission that happens. But as far as a technique, it's more just, I need space to come back to balance. If I go out of balance, it's hard to come back to balance if I'm navigating, if I'm dealing with the outer world, if I'm talking to people, if I, you know. So being alone and being in a place where I can go inside, then, then I talk to the mother. I say, show me what to do. And then it's like there's the mother, and then I think in the context of this conversation, what I'm thinking more about is me, that part in me that is in relationship with her. That part is such a strange word, because it's not a part of me, it's all of me. But that the experience I have of myself in relationship to her is probably the deepest, you know, aside from just the silence that holds that.
And do you have any particular experience that you could share with us about a moment in your life when your inner being was very present and it brought about some particular circumstances or actions or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's these two things, right? There's like the inner being telling me to do something. this kind of guidance that has to do with outer life. And that's happened many times, like I said, in very unexpected ways. Once I heard, I had a job. I had been in this job for 10 years. I was, had established, I was at a high level in this thing. And I heard, quit the job and buy the yoga studio. Something like that, that's like very specific. And so it's like specific, and it has a manifested, do this thing. But then there's like, last week I was in Chidambaram, and I went into the temple of Sivagama Sundari, which is the Divine Mother manifestation in Chidambaram. And I was standing and looking at this Murti, in the back. And I felt this tenderness, this incredible tenderness of the Divine Mother that holds everything, that loves everything, that, feels no sense of separation, no sense of me and you, and, you get my love and you don't get my love. It's like immense radiance, but tender and loving. So there was no guidance. There was no like, okay, now you have to go do this, but it's just that experience of presence and connection and myself being held. But it wasn't just me. I felt the whole universe being held by this mother. And the explicit guidance to go do something, and that deep, still kind of inner experience, which that's an example about tenderness. I can have other examples about peace and stillness or power and whatever, but they aren't separate, really, those two things. The guidance comes from that place, of depth, in a very, sometimes there's words, but even if there's words, it's like they're wordless. It comes from a profound silence, and the words are shaped from the silence somehow. And I do experience that, because I think all kinds of things. I have to be able to discern between a random thought that I might have and that voice. And it's that there's a quality to the voice that I can tell where it's coming from. And it's that same place.
And do you have any experience of a trap or a pitfall difficulty in that kind of practice? Or
I mean, for me, the trap is fear. That's the trap that I am most aware of in myself. And I can say, on a conscious level, if I upset Iris right now, then she won't like me, and so I better be careful and say the right thing. That's there, but it's not that important. I can generally navigate through those thoughts. But inside me, I'm aware of a deep, embodied, feels like a karmic fear, related to, even to put a story to it, about a past life or something, I can do that, but more, it's very primal, and it feels like endangerment. And it isn't something that I can just bypass, that I can just say like, oh, we'll just forget about that, because it's strong, and it's triggered by situations where I feel exposed, where I feel there's fear of being attacked by people, by groups of people, and there's fear of being exposed and seen. And I know myself, and I know that I'm not completely pure, and yet I'm afraid of people knowing that. I'm afraid of people knowing what it is in me that is confused and complicated, and not just my soul. And partly because I want to serve the divine. I want to be a vessel of service, and I want just the purity to come. I want to show people and offer people divine love. And I don't want anyone to know what else there is in me. But again, it's not so much like a personality quirk. It's a deep fear that if people know, I don't even know what, that I'll be in danger. It's like an animal kind of fear that if people see what's inside me, that it's not safe. So that's the block. It's not so much like a block around. I don't feel much in control of when these experiences happen. I can intend, but something like this experience with Shivagama Sundari in this temple, I visit lots of temples and sacred places, and sometimes there's a big opening and sometimes there's not, and it's not up to me. And sometimes I want to know guidance about the next step of my life and I have no idea, and then suddenly I do. So I don't feel really in control of those things. Yeah, the I can't remember exactly where I lost my train of thought there, but
Well, that was a beautiful sharing. Thank you very much, Matthew.
you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me to share.
Pleasure.